We are beautifully,
Welcome to the Beauty Melanated podcast. I am one of your hosts, Sarah, and I'm here with my co-host.
Hi, I'm Karen.
Hi, guys. So this week we have a very special guest on the pod. It's a very old friend of mine, Dawn. So Dawn's a lawyer, but she's also creates content on money, property, and health. So Dawn's purpose is helping women to recognise and attain their greatness in both health and wealth. So I thought it'd be really good to get Dawn on this week, and I'm really blessed that she can come onto the podcast because it's Fibroid Awareness Month. And Dawn is very passionate about fibroid health and has very bravely shared her story, mainly on Instagram. And I thought it'd be good to have her on. And over to you, Dawn. Please feel free to share your story and tell us a little bit more about yourself and your journey.
Hi, guys. Thank you both for having me on. So my name is Dawn Heels. As Sarah said, I'm a lawyer, but I create content helping women finance, property and health more recently. And that's due to my own circumstances surrounding fibroids. So about 6 years ago, I was in a very stressful job and I actually documented this online on YouTube. So I was talking about kind of like facing bullying at work and things like that and what you could do. But during that time, I was getting a real sort of pain in my side. I didn't know what that was. I linked it to my period, just thinking, it's probably period pain, but it felt a bit different. I think that was the thing that I always say to women. It was different to a period pain, but still I thought maybe it was relatable to the cycle. So I went to see my registered GP and he said, yeah, I think it's probably your periods, nothing to worry about. But then the pain persisted for a few weeks. And me being me, I was like, no, there's something definitely up. I don't think it's stress from my work. Let me just go and have a look, see the doctor again. And he said, it's nothing, just go away. So I went and got a second opinion from a female doctor. So that's something I always say to people as well. If you're not feeling good and correct about your health, you go and seek a second opinion. So I asked specifically to see a female doctor because of it being potentially a female issue. So she said from what I was describing, she thought it was probably a cyst on my ovary. But the way she said it was very calm, very kind of like, this is probably a cyst. And that was like, oh my God. So she said, what I'll do is I'll refer you to the hospital. So just the old NHS hospital for an examination, for an ultrasound. So I said, okay, fine. So I got referred, went to hospital. They did the ultrasound. And the lady said to me, oh, you've actually got fibroids. I didn't know what fibroids were at the time. I didn't know, hadn't heard of them. She said, you've got 2 fibroids. They're in your womb, but it's okay. It's normal. It's fine. So I was like, okay. She said, your doctor will explain to you more. So she said absolutely nothing at that scan. So I made an appointment to see my GP, yes, again. So this is the first one that had kind of fobbed me off. And he said, okay, yep, you've got fibroids. They're very common. They're very normal. Yes, they're painful, but all you do is take a paracetamol and you just have a hot water bottle. That will help you deal with your pain. So I was like, okay. So if a doctor is telling you that, you're going to listen, right? It's normal. Didn't really do any research. I just went away with this. But for 6 years, this pain continued and it got worse and I got more symptoms. And I kept going back to my doctor and he kept saying to me, it's the residual pain from your fibroids. You're absolutely fine. And I'm thinking, right. It got to, I would say, 2020. So we're in the pandemic. And I was getting all sorts of different pains. So I had pain in my butt cheek. I had pain down the left side of my leg. I had back pain. I had very heavy periods. I had very clotty periods. I had, what else did I have? Oh, I needed to go to the toilet all the time. That was really, really weird. I didn't understand why. And the pain was so severe in my stomach. And I thought to myself, no, this is absolutely not normal. Like, this is not normal at all. So I went back to my doctor and he said, right, I'm going to refer you to a private gynecologist so he can have a look. So this gynecologist, he did a pelvic examination and found that, yes, I had the fibroids, the 2 still, but they had grown. So because they had grown, I was experiencing more pain. Fine. He then said to me, there wasn't anything with regards to any operations or whatever. It was more kind of like, you've got them and that's it. I remember coming home just feeling a bit deflated because I thought, well, I don't know what I'm meant to do. I was also at that point, I'm in the point in my life where I want kids. Nothing was happening on that side as well. So that's another thing that fibroid can cause. It can cause infertility. So I was like, I've got this issue. I've got all this pain that's going on in my body. Like, what is going on? I'm a person that doesn't really share my private business with my colleagues. I work for a brilliant legal department where we all get on so well. We're very close, but still I don't share my personal information like that. And I don't know if it was like a calling that day, but something just said to me to have a conversation with one of my female colleagues. And she said, you do know we've got the private medical insurance at work that could potentially deal with this. And I was like, oh my goodness, we do. So I had not taken out private medical insurance with my work because I kept missing the deadline. But that year I had made it. So I was able to make an appointment with this other consultant who I saw, who did another pelvic examination. So you've got to appreciate it's just a year apart. When he went up inside of me, he said, I think you've got at least 6 fibroids. And I was like, pardon? He goes, you've got at least 6 and you've got a very big one. You've got a huge one. So there was one that was the size of a grapefruit that was sitting on my bladder. Wow. So that is why I was experiencing that pressure, the need to go for a wee. I went to see him in November. He said to me, I can book you in for an operation. You're going to need an open myomectomy. So that's where they give you the C-section operation. It goes deeper and it's like shelling peas. That's how they describe it. So it goes deeper than a C-section. It's the same size cut, but deeper. And yeah, they're just shelling everything. So you'll need that. I can book you in. He wanted to do it before Christmas. I said, no, let me have my Christmas. Let's do it for the new year. So January, I went in for the operation. So just to take you a step back, I was firstly diagnosed with 2 fibroids. This went to 6. My operation, they took out 16. So 16.
Dawn,
yeah.
Wow. How do they
16.
not spot that? How do they not see? I mean, the person said 2. What were they thinking? Come on.
Yeah, exactly that. Exactly that. I mean, that first scan was the ultrasound and it doesn't always pick up everything. I was just a bit confused as much as you were when I had these kind of second pelvic examinations. So this is where they get a camera and they go up your vagina and they have a look around.
Yeah.
As to why they didn't see more than the 2 that had grown. So, you know, in my mind, I'm thinking, but I couldn't have rapidly grown lots of fibroids within that yearly space, like especially one that is so big. They completely missed that massive one. So it's, yeah. It just doesn't make sense. So, yeah, I was in hospital. The consultant came in. He goes, do you want to see what we took out of you? And then, yeah, he showed me the picture and I was absolutely mortified. So that's why I had so much pain and suffering for 6 years, 6 years of chronic pain. And fibroids is something where it is common in women, but disproportionately common in Black women. And they don't know why. They don't know why they happen in our bodies. They don't know what causes it. They do have some inklings. Sometimes they say genetics. So, for instance, my mum, she had a fibroid. And I kind of think because even she doesn't know whether it was just the one she had or whether she had more. So she had a fibroid. They talk about, you know, if you eat foods high in estrogen, and estrogen also like just helps the fibroid to feed basically and get bigger. So, you know, that goes against it. There's been talk about chemicals, for instance, hair relaxers as well. But again, you know, some of these things are a bit like we don't quite know. They don't know. And what they don't do is to pump money into, and it's female gynecological issues in general, but they haven't put aside money to look into why fibroids happen to women in general. So it's quite a grey area. And what's frustrating is that they'll take it out and they won't say to you, well, this is what you need to do to prevent this from happening again. They just say it can happen. So that's the frustration. You've got to do a lot of research by yourself.
Wow. My gosh, Dawn, you must have been, were you frustrated? How did you feel when you first of all were told there's 2 fibroids, then you end up having 16 fibroids, one the size of a grapefruit? I can visually picture that already. So that must have been, as you said, the bladder situation.
Yeah, so more than 10 centimeters.
Yeah, I mean, wow. Did you feel angry? Did you feel upset? Like, how did you feel when you went from 2 to 16? I mean, were you relieved to find out there was 16 and they could be removed? I mean, how did you feel?
relieved in that sense that they could be taken out, but very frustrated, very upset. I remember crying. My partner would tell you, I would just burst into tears because my whole thing is that this could have been sorted out earlier. So even at the point of 2, when they were a certain size, that could have been taken out by another myomectomy operation, but it's less invasive. And I could have been recovered and fine. But you've literally left me to get to a point where I've had to be sliced open and you're taking out 16. It's a very long recovery. I had complications. I had to have an emergency blood transfusion. I had issues with the left side of my actual incision because that's where they had like loads on that side. So it wouldn't close properly. So it was weeping. I had to have a special kind of pump attached to me for a good 3 weeks after my operation. I was back in and out of hospital for a good 3 to 4 weeks. So you feel as though someone's been negligent. That's how you feel, as though you haven't taken me and my issues seriously. And the reason why I'm spending a lot of time advocating and educating people on this is because I don't want women to go through what I did. I don't want them to suffer for as long as I did. I want them to understand the treatments available. And it's still a learning process for myself. And the point is as well, because in the UK, we're quite reserved. We don't talk too much about things. The issue is quite silent. So I'm trying to get a lot of UK voices talking about what it is we can do, what options are available to us, because where the US women who are wonderful, honestly, they're wonderful in talking up, there are some treatments that are available to them that aren't available to us in the UK. So we've just got to be quite careful on, what we're being fed, because then that's another frustration. If we can't get something that's not available to us, what do we do?
First of all, I'd just like to say thank you so much for sharing your story. It's really important. I personally know quite a few people who have experienced difficulties with fibroids. Is it fibroids?
Yes, fibroids, yes.
And it seems quite common, actually, like you say, especially, as you say, women of colour. And it almost seems as if it's like a sort of lottery, really, as opposed to, where you go, where you live, which GP you see determines whether you get the treatment you need or not. And it just seemed that, in your case, unfortunately, like you say, you had to wait a long time. And then the surgery was obviously much more invasive, as you say, than it needed to have been. So, I just think you're really strong, you're really brave. You've come through it all, haven't you?
Thank you. Yes, yeah. It's been a lot, and it's not easy to share this story. I've said to like my friends and my family who were all for me, they said, once you've recovered, you've got to share this with people. I've actually found this my therapy, because there were times that I was in my bed thinking, I think I actually need to see somebody, because it's just, again, 6 years of suffering to then go through something. You think, do I actually need help? But I think because I've been sharing it, it's been an outlet for me. But like you said, the frustration, the women that I'm talking to, it's all the same story. It's repeated all the time. I went to see a doctor. They ignored me. I've waited. I'm still waiting. It's the same story. So we've got to get to the bottom of why people aren't listening, and how can we get, treatment sped up for these people as well, so they don't suffer.
I think it's hard. Sorry, Karen, I cut you then. But I think it's hard when it comes to, I think doctors, not in general, sometimes I think it's hit and miss with doctors. The problem is, I think sometimes you'll have a doctor that's spot on, and sometimes you'll have a doctor that doesn't, give a damn. I feel that's the reality of it. And I think often you have to push. And something like fibroids, as you said, it's not really highlighted much. And I love the fact, Dawn, that you are sharing your story like a testimony, basically. And it's really helping other people, other women, I think I've shared with you before that I myself have fibroids, and I didn't find out until I had a scan of when I was pregnant with my daughter. And it's just not talked about. And I don't know if is it a UK thing? I mean, in America, Dawn, is it talked about more? Is it? And if it's a UK thing, why? Why don't we talk about it more? I don't know.
I think, again, it must come down to just the UK character. We're just reserved people, aren't we? And I think once one person does start to share, you feel a little bit more comfortable. I think in America, like I said, God love them. They love to speak. Yeah. They're not scared of sharing. And that's where I got most of my information from. So prior to my operation and thereafter, it was basically the US ladies that educated me. And when I started reaching out to people and collaborating with people on fibroids, it was the US women. You know, there are some brilliant UK girls just doing their thing over here. But as we've all collectively said, we need more. We need to be doing more to just amplify our voices.
Definitely. No, definitely do. Karen, did you want to ask anything else? I jump in.
I'd just like to hear about your recovery, please, about, you know, where you are now and how things are going. You talked about, you know, wanting to start a family. I was just wondering how, you know, where things are now for you.
So this month marks month 6, which I can't believe because it literally feels like the other day I was in my bed going, I can't move, like literally. It's month 6. And yeah, so basically what they say to you is 3 months after your surgery, you can start trying for a baby. For me, I'm a person that listens to my body, and I was still very sore after that time. I also had another fibroid procedure as well. So they wanted to have a look inside to see if there's anything else that they needed to take out. But my testimony on that is that they didn't have to, due to the fact that the amount of fibroids I had in the first instance had distorted my uterus. So they thought I had some inside. But after they'd been taken out and they went back to do this second procedure, it just turned into more of a diagnostic procedure because there was nothing there. So that was just like, oh my gosh, that's just amazing. So I had that. And yeah, I've just been in recovery, just ensuring that I am fine because, you know, obviously to make and have a baby, that's going to be a lot of pressure on your body as well. And I wouldn't want to put my body through something it's not ready for. And especially where I did have a lot of problems with my incision and things like that. But we are hoping that we'll be able to, you know, bless everybody with some good news very, very soon because I'm very, very ready for it. And yeah, it's just been all about looking after myself. This thing kind of scares you into how you eat. My diet has changed a lot. My diet was fine before, but I think it just scares you into eating more fruit, more veg, working out even more because you just don't want this to happen again. Unfortunately, it can. I went to see my consultant last week and I said to him, you know, what is it I can do to prevent this? Because I wanted to hear from his mouth rather than the research I've seen. And he just said, but there's nothing. There's absolutely nothing. But my point is, if I sat down and ate McDonald's every day, that's not going to do any good for my body, is it? So at the very least, I can be doing things that I believe is going to help my body. So, you know, he reckons there isn't anything, but for me, I know I can be doing more and that's what I'll do. So I think sometimes, of course, you're guided by medical professionals, but you have common sense to know what, you know, you can and can't do to improve things for your body. So, yeah, I'm just in a space of things are good, things are mostly healed, and I can just get on with life. So that's the direction that I'm in at the moment.
Well, it's really lovely to hear that you are, you know, on the mend and that things are looking really bright for you. You look very well, so that's yeah, absolutely. But I think, like you say, the frustration is that there doesn't seem to be any sort of preventative measures that you can take to ensure this thing doesn't happen. And that's what's so hard, isn't it? You know, it's just one of those things. But like you say, eating well and exercising, all the things that we know we should do. I think, you know, for us ladies, it's particularly important, isn't it? Yeah, absolutely.
Exactly that. That's all we can do.
Dawn, can I just ask, you talked about diet. Can you just kind of share with the listeners what kind of things are no-nos, what kind of things, in your opinion, obviously you're not a doctor, as far as I'm aware, you're not a nutritionist, I don't know, you could be that as well. You wear a hat. What kind of things I mean, I'd like to know as well, what kind of things are you like, no way, and what kind of things would you like, yes? What would you say?
So it's going to be the things that you've heard before. So red meat, they say is not good, you know, in moderation, if at all, kind of thing. Things that are pumped with a lot of kind of like processed nonsense. So if you're going to buy things, you buy organically. So like your chickens and things like that. High in sugar foods, high fatty foods, all of those things are a no-no. But all of those things are things that we know if we're trying to keep, you know, healthy and fit, that we wouldn't really go down that road and eat a lot of anyway. So those are the things that they say no to. Dairy is another thing as well. You've got to be very careful with dairy. So the good things are, like I said, like the antioxidants. So like your fruit, lots of green veg as well. There's certain things like sweet potato that's supposed to be good, but it's more fish as well. But, you know, again, you have to be a bit careful with what types of fish and things like that. So it's the good foods that we all know are the good foods, and the bad foods that we all know the bad foods are the things that they say, you know, have more of, less of, or none at all. I know for friends and some other people that I do know that have been on this journey, that they have turned like vegetarian or vegan because of it. You know, they just want to strip out everything. For me, it's more of a moderation thing. I don't deny myself of anything, but I'm trying to have more of the good stuff, like even more so of the good stuff. And there's certain things that I'll be like, no, I can't really touch that. So like my dairy and things like that.
Yeah, that's really, really interesting. That's really interesting. And diet, fitness. What do you do with fitness? Are you a person that walks? Are you a person that goes to the gym? What do you like to do? I've
always shouted, there's a lady called Lucy Wyndham Reed, and I've been doing her workouts since it must be, oh my God, years and years and years. She does 7-minute workouts on YouTube, and I've ranted and raved about her. She's brilliant.
I'm making a note now. I need something for home. Difficult right now.
She's called Lucy Wyndham Reed, and she does a lot of 7-minute workouts. And I think they're perfect, especially if you're busy.
Yeah, 7 minutes is good.
It's good, isn't it, right? I don't know what she does in them, because the 7 minutes will work you out. And it's not high intensity or anything like that. She just uses your own body weight to work out. And honestly, you know, when you snap back. So I do a lot of her workouts. I also do a lot of walking, because I drive to work and things like that. Walking for me is a really good piece of exercise. So I like to just do power walks. I live quite near fields and stuff, so I'm power walking. So that keeps me fit and healthy. Obviously, it's burning what it needs to burn. It's keeping my body, ticking over as it should. So those are the things I do. A little bit of sort of like cardio, aerobic-y type things, but also some walking as well. And that seems to do its job for myself.
I am a walker. I'm an avid fan of walking. I've just got back from my 1.5-hour walk. I do it every day because I live near some fields, not too far from where Sarah lives. And I find it helps me to kind of clear my head, especially in the job that I do, we work in mental health. I just find it just cleansing for the soul, really, to be honest, as well as the exercise. Yeah.
And you've raised a really important point as well, which actually links back to fibroids, because stress is something that they say can really, trigger your pain, and make the fibroids grow more as well. So what you will notice is a bloat in the stomach. And that was something that I used to have constantly as well. So stress factors, that's another thing. Again, like you say, go for your walks, de-stress. That's something that I do as well. Try and do it at lunchtime to come and reset for when I'm back at work, and after just...
And it's so difficult, isn't it? Because as you said, your job used to be very sort of high pressured, and obviously, you worked hard, and it's very difficult, I think, to manage stress. That's why Sarah and I on the podcast, we talk a lot about looking after our well-being, our own mental health, our own spiritual health. That's really important to us, and I think we need to talk about that a bit more. I think
definitely.
The other thing I was going to mention is the fact that I did some research recently around hair products. You sort of touched on that slightly. And places, particularly I would say in the States, and I know in Jamaica, lots of young women, young girls have their hair relaxed, as well as other places, but I was just naming those two. And there was some research that suggests that because we don't have a lot of research around what goes in those hair products, and they're not regulated in the same way perhaps as other products are that are widely available in the market, that there could be a link between fibroids and our hair care. So things like relaxers, and when I read that, I was just so scared. I was really taken aback. I thought, oh my gosh, I've relaxed my hair.
I have as well. Yeah,
I have. I'd never do it again, but I have.
No, I don't.
In the past.
Yeah, I don't anymore. But that
I've stopped.
I'm sure all of us as kids, we've had hair relaxers through our hair. That's just it was a done thing, wasn't it?
Standard, isn't it? Yeah, exactly. Mm-hmm. So that was really scary. I thought, oh my goodness, a link from hair products to poor health. And I do think we need to raise awareness more. It's something that we need to think about. I think there should be more done about, research around the things that we put into our bodies, because, and I wouldn't even think, I know it sounds silly to say, doesn't it? But it wasn't as if I was, ingesting the stuff. It was just going on my head. But obviously that's seeping into my pores. It's going in my body. Yeah. But yeah, I was really taken aback by that. So just something else to think about, isn't it? Something else to be mindful of.
And that's why they're saying, and I guess, when we talk about why is it affecting Black women, the disproportion. Yeah. And so that's why I think they started to have a look at, okay, well, what have you guys been doing differently to, other races? And that's why they were coming up with, is it the chemical relaxers and the perms that you used to put in your hair? So it'll be quite interesting to keep our eye on, what transpires off the back of that. Absolutely.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
No, definitely. Dawn, I want to ask you, obviously your partner is going to be a massive support to you for your operation. How much did he know about fibroids before you had this operation, etc., and this issue? Did he know nothing? Or
nothing? Hadn't heard of it. Nothing.
Really?
Nothing. Okay. Yeah. So it was a real education for him as well, for the both of us, because like I said to you, when they first told me, I had no idea. And even though my mum had told me that she had fibroids in the past, when you don't quite link the two, it sounds really weird. You don't link the two. It was after the fact that we had a real deep conversation about it. But yeah, she had told me whatever, but she was left in the dark with it as well. But no, getting back to your point, he didn't know, but he was fantastic. He was brilliant, honest to God. He was with me in recovery. Like, that guy did things that, boy.
Beautiful.
Yeah, you bleed a lot. You bleed a lot after recovery, and you need help going toilet and things like that. And he was just, he was amazing. You definitely need strength in your support system when you're going through something like this, because it's not just the physicalities, as in you can't even sit up in bed. And I know for those who've had a C-section, they'll understand what I'm talking about, but it's the physicalness as well. And I had to say to my mum, we're having a very deep conversation about it, and I said, what you've got to understand from somebody like myself who is really, really wanting a child at this moment in time, really wanting one, I'm going in to have an operation that is essentially the C-section operation, but I'm not coming out with a baby. So imagine how that makes me feel going through all of this, and then having to try thereafter. So to explain it to her, I explained it to my partner. And I think it's important to have these transparent conversations as well. I know it's about women and their parts and stuff, but they have to understand what you're going through as well, because there were nights before my operation, I just burst into tears in bed because I was so scared, so scared will I wake up from the hospital, the operation, all of this stuff, what happens? Is it going to be worth it? So, I'm grateful to have a partner who I can be very transparent. I can talk to him about anything. And he was amazing. Honestly, he was absolutely amazing throughout this journey. And he was someone that said, you have to share your fibroid story. I also dropped a picture on Friday because that was the first day of fibroid awareness.
Love it, Dawn.
He was the one that was like, you need to showcase it. Go for it. He was there for the shoot, Brilliant.
I think what you said is really important, actually, because I can imagine going through all that pain, possibly having to take time off work, bleeding a lot heavily. All those things will affect your relationship, So I can imagine that it was really important to have that dialogue and be able to say, look, this is what I'm going through, and for him to be understanding and to be there. I have a friend, actually, who also experienced something very similar to you, and it affected her fallopian tubes.
Yeah.
She had a lot of problems with that, like you say, a lot of bleeding. And we were very young at the time, actually, when she went through this. But I just remember thinking, she just seems in so much pain and so much discomfort. And it just seemed like a really unpleasant thing to go through. So, yeah.
Yeah, I had 8 weeks off work. So they give you initially 6 weeks off to recover. My workplace, they're fantastic. They said, look, have 8 weeks off, come back when you're ready, kind of thing. It was, I would say, the 6th week. I remember that was the week of my birthday, and that was the first time I actually felt as though I can get up and get dressed properly. And again, you've got to appreciate, especially when you're in these relationships these days, you still want things to be okay. And I remember looking in the mirror and just looking horrendous because you're sick, you're recovering. I'm not going to be there with makeup and looking glam. But, you look at yourself, you're like, oh my God, I look awful. But this guy had to see that for 6 weeks, but this guy still loves me for who I am. Do you get what I mean?
Of course.
It's very, very deep what you go through, because in your mind as a female, you're thinking, oh my goodness, kind of things.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Literally, I look like a granny. I was just in like my dressing gown. That's all because you can't have anything touch you. Like you need everything to heal, and you're just shuffling because you're walking like this. You're shuffling. And I thought, oh my God, this guy has to see this. But like,
that's love, though. To me, that's 100%. How you know a man loves you, because he can see you for who you are. You're without all your makeup and using wigs and all that, and he still loves you, and he'll help you use the toilet, and you're bleeding, and that is love. Yeah. To me, it sounds weird, but that
is love. How long
is love? Yeah.
How long have you been together?
We've been together nearly 2 years. Yeah.
Nice.
So, we've started from a place of sickness, if you want to call it that. So we're going to the health bit now. So, you do see people's characters, don't you? They always say when you go through a tough time in your life, you will see who's there for you. And let me tell you, this whole experience has really let me see who's been there for me. It will show you life. It will definitely show you life.
Definitely. I think I find in my life, often the people I think are going to be there for me, it's often totally different people that end up being there for me. We're like, wow, I didn't expect her to support me through all this.
100%.
So, yeah,
100%.
That's really good. And Dawn, I just wanted to ask quickly, what advice would you give to someone that maybe hasn't got the partner that's there to support them in bed and, just hoist them up and help them with the toilet and all that? What should someone wait until they have that support? What should someone do that maybe, I don't know, I can't think, someone that doesn't have that support and might be on their own or something?
Yeah, it's very difficult because the advice is when you come out of hospital, they want someone to be there to ensure that you're okay because you're drugged up to the max. So if you've got someone who is at least trusting, that you trust, that can, I guess, see you in, oh my goodness, like looking whatever and all the rest of it, then I suggest, even if it's a close friend or something, that you have somebody there for at least the first week. I think thereafter you're a bit better getting out of bed and shuffling around. But that first week you're just out of it. So you definitely need somebody there if you can, or at least someone to check in on you. If you don't have someone staying with you, have someone who can come to the house, probably in the morning, in the evening, see if you need anything. Because that's what my family did as well, alongside my partner. They just sorted me out with food, things like that. I was proper pampered. In your life where you've never had this because you're so used to being that independent woman and all that.
That's it,
right? Listen, I was enjoying my best life. I was like, ding, 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 never having this again. It's brilliant. Literally.
Can I just clarify something then?
Yes.
So you said that early on you started experiencing pain. First you attributed it to period pains, and you realised actually as it got progressively worse there was something a bit more sinister going on. Was the GP suggesting then that having fibroids is quite normal and that most women just live with it and you should just take a paracetamol and get on with it?
Yep. That was it.
But would you say then that's not the right advice, that if you start to feel that, definitely press and make sure your GP gives you a thorough sort of examination, looks at this? It's not something you should have to live with. No, definitely not.
Yeah. What you've got to understand is that these GPs aren't typically specialised in female gynecology. So you should be asking for a referral to a specialist where they can then go up inside of you, have a look and say, well, your fibroid's this. But what I've tried to do with my content is to collate a list of questions to ask, because it's all very well them saying, just like how they said to me, you've got fibroids, there's nothing to worry about. But because I was like, oh, okay, I didn't ask questions at that first point. So where are they located? How big are they? Things like that.
Right.
You've got to understand how could that potentially impact me. So if you were at a stage where you're ready to have kids, at any point in time, if it's in the muscle or if it's in a place that could impact your fertility, then you need to be doing something about it, rather than like how I was, you're kind of trying and nothing's happening. You're thinking, oh, why, what is it? And you're thinking everything else but the fibroids. Then you're at a detriment to your own self. So if you know something's up, and your doctor fobs you away, you get a second opinion. I always say, if you've got a male doctor, and this is honestly no disrespect to males, but this is just the way to get around it, ask for a female doctor, because I know different surgery practices are different. You may be assigned one doctor and that's all you can see. So say, I'd like to see a female doctor, I've got female issues. Go see that doctor. Again, if they're fobbing you off, you need a second opinion, a third opinion. Ask them to refer you. You've got all the power in the world to ask for a referral, and they should refer you to a specialist gynecologist to have a look. I said to people as well, if you are employed, go and look at your employment contract to see the benefits. If you've got private medical insurance, it is worth its weight in gold, in absolute gold. I can't stress that enough. Sign up to that. I think we mostly believe that nothing's going to happen to us. We don't need to have that extra level of care. But look at myself. God only knows how much that operation, over 10 grand that would have cost. I remember we calculated it out at work. So you've got this speed with private medical insurance. Look at how fast I got everything taken out. So yes, first, second, third opinion, ask for that referral, go and see them, ask the questions. Are you happy? Because at the end of the day, you do have to make that decision. But if you know it's something that is impacting your health, just the way how it did with myself, like severely, you need to like either get them out or see what treatment, you can have. It's not all about surgery, obviously, but if there's other treatments that you can have to shrink them, there's treatment to shrink as well. See what's afforded to you over here and just go for it. You can't suffer.
So how can anyone really access the list of questions that you've collated? Where would I find those?
So they're on my Instagram page. So
Okay.
my Instagram page is Dawn_Heels, and Heels is spelled HEELS. And there's a whole heap of reels. It's usually the reels that I've got purple writing. I've done that on purpose. So there is a list there where I say, okay, take a notepad. This is what you need to ask to get to the bottom of it. And that's from my own experience, from learning later down the line, after I was just like, no, this is ridiculous now, and understanding what impact this has. But I would also recommend people do their own research on fibroids.
I think that's really helpful. Yes, to do your own research, but also the list of questions, because I think we do kind of look to the GP as the professional, and you sit there and you take what they say because it's the GP, they know what they're talking about, and it's quite easy to be fobbed off. So thank you so much for that. I'm sure lots of ladies will access your Instagram information. And the other thing I was going to say is that it just seems, like I say, so unfair that you have to rely on private healthcare, because for some people they won't have access to that. And the NHS really ought to be providing the same level of service. I think it's quite disgusting, actually, that, you'd have to, if you have got private healthcare, that's fine. And you can go to the top of the list, or it can be sort of, the process can be sped up and you can get seen quicker. But, surely that's what we pay money into the pot for, don't we? So that we can access decent treatment on the NHS. I think it's quite disgusting that so many women have not been able to access the treatment that's needed.
It's true. When I went to see my consultant in November, he said to me, you can have, like I said to you in the beginning, you can have this operation in December. Or if you want to wait and just see what happens with your body, you can go back into the NHS system. But his point was, to get your first appointment will be 9 months' time. It will be in 9 months' time. And you're just thinking, but there are women that are waiting and they're in severe, and I've spoken to these women who cannot cope anymore, but they have to wait in that system to just have their first consultation that will tell them what they already know. I've got fibroids. Okay, cool. When am I going to have this operation to get them out, if it's at that point of, So yes, you've got access to speed. What I do say to people is, remember, it's the same level of care. So don't get it confused with private and NHS, but it's that speed you get with private. Yeah.
It's crazy, isn't it? You shouldn't have to fight through the NHS just to get referral. I remember I went to the doctors the other day for something to do with eczema, and I had a junior doctor, and she was fantastic. I think because she was kind of fresh and kind of like full of, and it was mild. It was just eczema, but she referred me straight away to a dermatologist, and I just thought, and that was like in 1 second. That's something mild. Yeah. So how come she can refer me for that, something mild like eczema, but then yourself wasn't referred straight away? For fibroids? It just seems insane.
Yeah. And maybe like someone who's fresh, who's new, who's right, maybe she's got a different way of thinking. Maybe she's gone into the profession thinking, no, I really need to help people and do what I can. You just don't know. You don't know. That's what the frustrating thing is. And that's why I was so frustrated with my doctor, because I just thought, but if someone's repeatedly coming to you in pain, surely you want to do something about it. It shouldn't be me having to essentially go behind your back, because that's how it felt when I was going to the private hospital. Cheating on my doctor. It kind of felt like that, because he then got the reports to say she's been to see me. You told me he had 2. I think she's got at least 6. And then he would have got that final report saying, by the way, we took out 16. And then what? You know?
Yeah.
It's crazy. I'm just so glad, Dawn, you can highlight this. This is so important for women to understand this. And also, I think it also gives people inspiration to think, you know what, actually, I would like to get checked out. I mean, was the pain for you, was it a daily pain for you with the fibroids? Or, because I know we don't all get period pain, but I know I get not very nice period pain. But the rest of the time, I'm fine. Like, was it every day, the pain with it?
It was every day. And it was a kind of, for me, everyone's going to be different, but it was like a stabbing pain on my left side. So that's what made me think, But then as the pain progressed over the years, it was kind of stabbing, but almost like a punching.
Oh,
it was weird.
Dawn.
So it would make you like, ooh. And I would sit here on this chair, because this is where I work, just with a hot water bottle. You'd be sat here like, oh my goodness, you know? So yeah, and then the pain in the back. I think there are different symptoms that people don't realise are related to fibroids. I remember when my back started to hurt, and I actually thought that was as a result of exercising, because, you know, obviously I go hard, but it wasn't because of the fibroid. So that again was a constant lower back pain that I had because of the fibroid. So yeah, you've really, I think what I would always say to women as well, just be very in tune with your body. You know what it does, like how you said, Sarah, you know, you've period pain and you know how that feels, but is there something more to that? You know, are you getting heavier periods? Are you getting clottier periods? Because that's another massive sign. You know, what else is happening with your body as and when your cycle comes and goes? And just to diarise it as well. If you think something's up, diarise it for a good 3 months as well, because then that's evidence that you can take to the doctor and say, but, you know, at month 1 I was like this, but look at month 3, like this is ridiculous now.
Yeah. Really,
I think also, sorry to cut you, Sarah, I was just thinking about, you know, checking our breasts regularly, making sure, you know, that whatever lumps were there, you know, haven't changed, grown or anything like that. I think, self-care, really important. Do you know, I was meant to have a sort of like a blood test for a bit of an MOT, right, at my GP's. The nurse sent me a letter to say, come in, it's just like a checkup, because I'm of a certain age. And I've not been. It's been like 2 years. So
That's terrible.
I know. It is, honestly. And I thought,
2 years.
Because then it COVID and And I thought, my goodness, if this was for my children, I would never, ever, ever neglect my kids, would I? I would never, I'd be straight down. I'd have made an appointment. I thought, that's for myself. I've gone, I'm fine. Honestly, this has made me think, actually, I need to make this appointment and actually need to attend tomorrow.
Yeah.
It's inspired me.
Yeah, it's important.
You just can't mess about. I say to people, look, get your mirror out, have a look, see if everything's, honestly, we've only got one body, we've only got one life.
Yeah, have a look.
It's better to get in there early if something, you know, you think something's up, and get that sorted than leaving it too late and you're suffering and, you know,
very true. Yeah.
Agreed. Dawn, it's been so amazing to have you on. It has been fantastic. Thank you so much for coming on. Karen, did you want to ask Dawn anything else?
I just wanted to say thank you so much for joining us. It has been a pleasure meeting you.
Thank you for brilliant.
No, thank you for coming on, Dawn. You gave everybody your Insta handle. Is there any other social media or anything else that you wanted to share?
Yeah, I've shared my whole fibroid story on YouTube. So if you type in Dawn Heals, you'll find, I think there's about 3 long videos on there, just documenting everything that's happened and tips and tricks as well. So my main active kind of sites is YouTube, and then Instagram, you know, I'm on there. You can contact me, DM me. I'm open. I'm ready to answer questions. And just to check out the content on there as well.
Thank you.
Best of luck for the future.
Thank you.
Thank you. Come on.
Thank you for coming on, Dawn. Very much appreciated.
Thank you for having me.
Okay then. Bye. Bye.
We are beautifully.